just started my whole day off wrong. As a homicide investigator, you could go into the office. I'm here in the studio with my hot tea. I've got the picture of the twins here. I'm all happy. Then I have to hear Alex Murdaugh whining and snotting in court. I guarantee you he wasn't crying when he gunned down Maggie and his son, Paul, right? All he was thinking about was himself. And then, you know what? My day is just shot to H-E-double-L when I have to hear his whiny voice. Did that happen to you? You go in I know your wife, a.k.a. Honey, I bet she'd give you a wonderful cup of coffee and a kiss on the ear, and off you go to work, and then you have to read a case file. And it's just shot to H-E-double-L.
You know, Nancy, our motto in homicide is when your day ends, ours begins.
Yeah.
And with him, is everything that he talks about, Murdaugh, is in the past tense. Do we ever notice that she did love me, you know? And every time he gets caught, all of a sudden it becomes present. I'd be fascinated to hear what the doc thinks about why he is always talking in the past tense.
That's a really good point. Hold on, Ronnie Richter. I hear you're chomping at the bit. Thank the Lord, because you've been in the courtroom. Murdaugh back in the courtroom trying to get a new trial, believe it or not. Hold on, Ronnie. I got to go back to Dr. Bethany. Dr. Bethany, again, please dummy down for me. Okay, I'm just a JD. You're the shrink. This guy will stop at nothing, just like Cult Mom used Christ and her dead son to try to get a lighter sentence. And here he is using Maggie.
He thinks he's controlling everybody. He's been in control his whole life. He's been in charge of everybody, or he has the illusion that he's been in charge of everybody because he's not in charge of anybody right now. But lying, that is a way to manipulate other people. But it comes from a sense that other people won't see his BS, that other people think he's great.
I not only see it, I can smell it. I can smell it right here in the studio. And when he took the stand, he emanated the stench of BS. Dr. Bethany, I know that your parents were missionaries and you go on mission trips. Have you ever actually smelled cow crap in a field? There's nothing like it.
All kinds of bullshit.
I mean, you know, this guy he reeked walking. Hey, you ever seen Charlie Brown in Pigpen? Always has a cloud of dust around him. There's just a stank around Murdaugh everywhere he goes, and he has beautiful outfits. I was looking at his brother who was in court, his son who sat right in front of me, all the family. Talk about designer clothes. I mean, they look like they had gone straight to the couture department at Dillard's. I mean, that's just the only thing I can think of. Or Saks Fifth Avenue. They looked awesome, and so did he, but he still stunk.
When the beads of sweat are on the person's forehead and snot's coming down their nose and they're sweating and they're
we've got to quit saying
stammering.
snot because I told the twins not to say it, and sometimes they sneak and listen to crime stories. Let me go to Ronnie Richter. Hold on, Jennifer Wood. I know you're the one that has actually all the true facts right now, but can I address this to Ronnie Richter? Partner Bland Richter Law Firm. They're representing the Stephen Smith family, another teen found dead near Alex Murdaugh's hunting lodge. Gloria Satterfield's family, she worked for the Murdaughs, raising the boys as a nanny. The Plyer sisters. Ronnie, Alex Murdaugh back in court. Could you just explain, and in a nutshell, I used to love it to get on the elevators or at the courthouse or in court, like in an opening statement, where the defense attorney would, shoot off a big, long Latin phrase to try to impress the jury. It did the opposite. So please speak English, simple English to me. Alex Murdaugh back in court for a new trial. Why?
He wants a new trial because he contends that the clerk of court went into the jury room during the deliberations and said something that changed the outcome of the trial.
I like what you just said. Simple, short. I loved it. And you're right. Simply put, you are right, Ronnie Richter. Dr. Michelle Dupree, high-profile forensic pathologist, medical examiner, former detective, and she actually wrote the book, Homicide Investigation Field Guide. And a recent book, which is on Amazon, Money, Mischief, and Murder, the Murdaugh Saga. The rest of the story. Dr. Dupree, one of the reasons I'm so angry right now is because, as you know, my fiance was murdered just before our wedding. It changed my life. I didn't even want to live. Dropped out of school, lost down to 89 pounds, couldn't eat, couldn't think. It was horrible. And I thought, oh, I know it all now about grief and suffering. I didn't know anything until I had the twins. And now I realize what grief and suffering would be. One of the twins, or both of them, living without one of their parents. Me losing one of them. I don't think, unless you've lived through it, going to a murder scene, you have been to many, as you have been McDonough, as you have been Ronnie Richter. The stench of blood, the dry blood, looking at the victims lying there, staring off into space, their bodies at weird angles, just holes, their bodies riddled with holes, gaping wounds, blood all matted in their hair. And, Maggie was such a perfect dresser all the time, and she dressed her whole family, I can tell you that, like beautifully. Their clothes drenched in blood. And then it starts to coagulate and dry and smell. It's terrible. That's what's going through my mind about Maggie and Paul dead like that. I mean, once you have lived through that and been to those scenes, you never look at a murder the same way again. Until then, it seems like a movie or a made-for-TV story. But when you go to that scene and you see these people and they're suffering, it's terrible. And to see him get up in that courtroom and call on the name of Maggie to get a lighter sentence just sends me right over the edge. Explain what a real murder scene is like, much less a double murder, Dr. Dupree.
Nancy, you have done an excellent job, and you're absolutely right. It is something that you will never forget. The sights, the smells, the sounds even. And, one thing that I find very interesting, and I've done a lot of research on this, Alex keeps saying that I would never hurt them. I have never found where he said, I did not hurt them. That just strikes me as something very odd.
Now, to the latest. And it pains me to say this. Jennifer Wood is joining me, Director of Research, FITSnews.com. That's FITS news.com. Jennifer, what is, and see, I'm very torn because I befriended Becky Hill during the trial. We spoke during breaks. I needed a phone one day. I couldn't get reception. I had to find out something about the twins. Something was happening, and I couldn't find my husband. I couldn't find anybody. I had to use, she let me use her phone one day. She could not have been nicer or friendlier, and more importantly, more professional. So I tend not to believe these allegations. But what if she said something in passing like, oh, this will be a quick verdict? Meaning, in jest, like it's probably going to be a long verdict. Because I remember coming out of the courtroom right after the closing statements and jury charges, and I called Jackie, who's sitting right here with me right now, because I was there and she was here. And she said, well, what's going to happen? I said, oh, we ought to have a verdict in about 30 minutes. And we both started laughing because we knew it was not going to be in 30 minutes. So how do I know that's not what she said? I mean, I tend to believe her. But what in the hay is happening,